All right, we're back with part 2. This is Sai's opportunity to give us his hot takes from E3 2016. We already went through what Drew, I, and Redbeard took away from the major publishers, the third-party publishers, and everything like that. But Sai didn't have the opportunity to do such a thing, so we're giving him that chance now. Sai, what's the big thing you took away from this year's E3? Go.
Well, Ryan, it's hard for me to... I'm going to say it like this. E3 this year did not blow me away like some of the expositions last year, excuse me. The reason I say that is because there weren't any humongous announcements or any announcements I was surprised by, and it didn't really have the same effect. And again, maybe E3 is just continuously going downhill. I don't know about that. But with
All
that
right, so you weren't impressed. Moving on. Brad, you've been playing Star Ocean. No, I'm just kidding.
Now, as I was saying before I was so rudely and inconspicuously interrupted, I will say this. There were a few games I do want to talk, or a few events I do want to take time to address. The first one was Battlefield 1, which seems to be one of the bigger releases that people are anticipating. I did see the trailer. It looks, from a visual graphic standpoint, it looks very impressive. Again, I don't think that was any surprise. Battlefield-wise and historic-wise, that seems to look pretty accurate. Again, it's rare. It's almost unheard of in this day and age, Ryan, to have a game based on World War One.
Yeah.
We usually just get World War II games or the whatever war Call of Duty finds itself in for its premise.
Mm-hmm.
But
they're making them up now. They don't even.
Oh
they,
yeah,
they haven't done a historical war in a long time.
Oh well, yeah. Oh yeah, Ryan, they're heading off into space. They didn't have any more room left left on Earth, so they got to take the battle into space.
That's not true. They haven't hit up Vietnam. I don't think they've done a Vietnam game, have they?
Yes, there was. There was a Medal of Honor or a Medal of Valor game that took place in Vietnam maybe about 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah, there's been...
Yeah, but there's been World War I before, hasn't there?
I mean, Verdun did come out recently, but other than that,
there's this other game called The Darkest Days, or The Darkest of Days, which I think starts during World War I and may end up somewhere else, but it does take place during World War I, so there is that game. But yeah, I mean, it really hasn't been tackled too often. Oh, that Ubisoft game that came out recently, Valiant Hearts. That was a game that took place during World War I, and you should probably go pick that up because that was a really fantastic game. Anyway,
I'll have to check it out.
Back to Snoop Dogg smoking a blunt on TV.
Wow. I can't believe I'm getting all this crap. Anyway, what else? Another game that really impressed me, Ryan, like you guys, is The Legend of Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, besides the Vanilla Sky reference with the "Open Your Eyes" thing that came on in the trailer, I was actually excited for this. Growing up, I remember my first Legend of Zelda game. It was on Game Boy. It was Link's Awakening, N64. I played, of course, the Legend of Zelda. But moving forward, this seems to be a new chapter or a new, maybe even a new novel for Legend of Zelda. I was thoroughly impressed by the gameplay. I like seeing how Link now has the ability to glide. He can climb things finally, which he seemed to lack the ability to do in the previous games for some inane reason. I don't know why. I mean, anybody who's able to take down monsters with just a sword and a shield, I would think would be able to climb.
Yeah, I don't know. The climbing seems pretty robust this time around. Like it looks like you can pretty much climb on anything, which is one of the cool things that I took from that demo that they showed at E3.
No, it is, Ryan. I mean, I agree with that. I think they had to adapt and get with the times. I mean, we have in the worlds of Uncharted and basically now even to Grand Theft Auto, we have our protagonists who can climb things. So I think that it was important step to do that. Yes,
well,
Ryan.
well, I'm gonna say behind that, you got to remember when these original games came out, you couldn't climb in any of them. So I mean,
but the Legend of Zelda has had a few releases, or I think a release or two, a game or two ago, where they could have introduced climbing.
Well, you were able to climb in the N64 games. I mean, it just depends on how you climbed. You weren't able to climb on everything, but you were able to climb.
Yes, but I'm just saying I would expect Zelda to have at least incorporated it somehow in its content.
You mean Link?
Moving on.
Yes. Go ahead.
Anyways, the only thing, Ryan, I was a little taken aback by were the graphics. I wasn't impressed by those. I thought they could have done a much better job. And again, maybe they will. But
well, yeah, that was so all of that footage which you talked about on the last episode was all recorded on the Wii U. So it's
a different art style.
Yeah, the art style is definitely different, but also you can probably expect a better looking game on whatever the NX is going to be. But they didn't have any of that footage there.
Well, I would hope so. But, I mean, again, it's whether it's the graphics or even the art style, I wasn't big on that. I'm not going to say that's a complete deterrent, but it is going to have some sort of effect if it remains like that. But hopefully they touch it up. But that's just my opinion. Now, another game which I did not have the opportunity to discuss was, lo and behold, South Park.
Woo!
The Fractured Butthole.
No, it's actually the Fractured Butthole.
Yes, the Fractured Butthole.
No, the Infliction's butthole. No. Go ahead.
Yes, I am aware of that, Ryan. I am not a complete moron like certain people. Anyways, but I will say that I am a fan of South Park. I admit some of the seasons can be inconsistent. The episodes usually consists of ones that are hit or miss, but the game South Park, The Stick of Truth, I was a fan of. I mean, yes, there were parts that grossed me out and I thought were unnecessary again, that's just the creator's style. They like to shock and make obscene or gross out humor at times. Mm-hmm. Although I would say, arguably, people think Family Guy could be more profane than South Park, believe it or not, in terms to crude content. But moving on, I like how it's a superhero setup this time. I like how they're actually going back to putting in their superhero personas and adding a few more into the show. And they're going to incorporate, we had Captain America Civil War. They're going to use that as the backstory. They're going to take why some people were disappointed in Batman versus Superman. And basically, I like the trailer showing how Cartman showed how there are just, like you said before, Ryan, too many superhero movies, showing how there's going to be my movie, then there's going to be the movie where we all team up, then the sequels where it has individual movies. I thought that was pretty hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that first game ended up having a pretty positive reception overall. And from what I've seen of this game, the gameplay is a little bit different than what that game was originally, which was like just basically a turn-based RPG. This one is more tile-based, where you're positioning your characters, and that gives them bonuses and stuff like that. So I think it's a pretty cool idea that they're embracing different gameplay styles with each entry into the South Park series. It's pretty cool.
Right, and actually, Ryan, what's interesting is the last game, people were worried because, I mean, I guess it was during a time where South Park had more miss episodes than hit episodes. They were worried that Matt Stone and Trey Parker weren't going to write a script that was going to be subpar. This is why, but they proved to be completely wrong. They had their humor. They had their one-liners. Yes, it might have been, you can argue that some of that was a little uneven or it may have dragged on a little bit too much, but it's still a very funny game, a game that I've laughed numerous times and love hearing some of those quotes. So I'm expecting the same this time. I know that they have worked extremely hard and this is their passion. So I'm anticipating big things for it.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Does that have a release date yet?
It's coming out this October or it's between October and December, I believe.
Okay. So this year. Cool. Yeah, we'll look forward to that. What's next up on your docket?
Well, Ryan, let's talk about something I was somewhat let down on, but not worried. I'm talking about Mass Effect 3, which privately
Andromeda.
You and I have had conversation. Yes, I'm sorry, Mass Effect Andromeda, excuse me. I want to say that because, Red's giving me the 4 fingers of death, so.
Yeah.
It's 4. It's Mass Effect 4.
Andromeda. Sorry for my malapropism, people. But I will say this, Ryan, like you, we've had conversations, like I've said, that we were a little let down that not because of what they showed, but what they didn't show. It was a lack of content, and I understand, but unlike some people out there, I'm actually not worried. And you know why? It's because they made 3 very good to great games, 3 great Mass Effect games. So I want to give BioWare the benefit of the doubt. I want to see how this goes. And again, we've had companies before that have had staffing issues before. I mean, some people were worried about Uncharted 4, for Christ's sakes, with all its delays and people being fired. I mean, the screenwriter was replaced at one point. So I think we need to give that a go. And I'm willing to give the Mako, which was one of my least favorite parts of the first Fallout game, another go ahead as well.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that game ends up turning out pretty well, because I'm pretty excited for it.
Same here.
But at the same time, I am a little concerned about the staffing issues and the fact that it's been 2 E3s now and they really haven't shown too much of it. They only have like a few months, like less than a year to kind of get the word out on what this game actually is, how different it is from the previous ones, and what we can expect from it.
Besides the fact it takes place, I think, over 100 years after the last game, and there's going to be no Commander Shepard, allegedly.
Yeah.
But I will say this, Ryan. I'm wondering if the people who put out the trailer tried to, or what they put out in their presentation at E3, I wondered if their thought process was leave the audience wanting more than wanting less. So henceforth, limiting their content and either releasing it in a trailer at a later date or waiting for us to discover it ourselves.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what they did last year, and I was hoping to see a little bit this year, something that made me brought my faith back to it. Like, oh yeah, this is actually going to be pretty good, because that was one of the number one things I was hoping to see. That and Red Dead Redemption 2. Sequel, which didn't end up happening at all.
But Ryan, like we also talked about, I think we should have known that Red Dead wasn't going to be announced then, because again, Rockstar doesn't do E3. So I think we should have realized that. I mean, it's great to dream, it's great to hope, but again, I think we should have been a little more realistic about that.
Sure.
Your dreams were futile.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Red. I'm not a pessimist. I'm not exactly a complete pessimist like you. So moving forward,
I'm not a complete pessimist.
You're acting like one now, sucker.
No, you're talking about the Mass Effect games, and I'm with you guys on the fact that it's going to be something different. But you have to consider that the original 3 games were written by a completely different team. All right, everybody that keeps swapping in and out with this thing, it's a whole new thing. It's a whole different actual group that's doing this. So you got to take that into consideration.
Yeah, but keep in mind, Red, Uncharted 4 was written, or at least mostly written, by a new writer. And hey, even if you want to go into outsides, George Lucas wrote all 6 Star Wars before J.J. Abrams wrote the next script. Look what happened.
But it could be a better thing. It could be better than the original, but
That's
you got to
what I'm
also take into the consideration that it could be a flop. I'm not necessarily a pessimist, as I am a realist. Okay.
Yeah, that's where I am too.
Oh, Dark Ones.
I keep my expectations real.
I keep my real
Yeah.
expectations.
Or you could just
Not-
keep
not-
your expectations low, and then the game surprises you, and they knock them way
but
out.
you don't.
No,
But you
but then
don't want
people
any
like you come up and call me a pessimist, so
exactly.
I gotta run
Look,
I gotta run the line.
Look, guys, don't get me wrong. I understand where your pessimism is coming from. And yes, I am a little worried, but I'm not going to let it concern me because, like you
I'm
said,
not concerned. I'm anxious. And to be honest, the whole thing you're talking about where they're not releasing it and where we could find it out ourselves, I think is probably one of the smartest things any gaming company could do right now is to keep it in the dark till the very last minute. It's kind of like what was that movie that was coming out? Like Deadpool. They made sure that nothing was released. Nothing.
right. What they did, Red, was that they released viral. They had a viral campaign. I mean, one of the best things that they did was create a poster that made it look like a Valentine's Day movie that you could say, "Hey, baby, want to see this? It's a romantic movie." And lo and behold, it's an obscene, blood-soaked comic book movie.
Well, I mean, and it wasn't just them; it was somebody else. A couple different movie makers have done that, where they keep the content purposely away. They'll give you a screening, but if you release anything, I mean, you're severely sued.
Yeah, that's because you signed a confidentiality agreement.
So they do something like that with the game. So when the second it comes out, you're like, "Oh my god, this is amazing! It's the best thing I've ever played."
Yeah, they haven't done it. They haven't had any games that. Well, actually, you could argue that this recent release with Inside was kind of like that, where they showed a real quick trailer at E3, nothing substantial, and then they had the release date, and then the game came out without a whole lot of pre-promotion. Like there wasn't a whole lot of trailers, there wasn't a whole lot of things like, "Oh, Inside's coming out, get ready," blah 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 blah. It just came out, and you're also seeing games like Watch Dogs 2 this year and Fallout 4 last year that are being announced like 6 months before their release date, which is
actually the smart thing to do, Ryan, because I thought what Bethesda did was a very smart thing to do, and I'm thinking what is it? Ubisoft that makes Watch Dogs?
Yeah, we'll
correct?
see if Watch Dogs is what that ends up being. I guess it's hard to tell whether or not it's worth it or not. I guess a lot of it comes down to whether or not you want people to misinterpret what your game is before it's done.
I agree with that. No, I think that's absolutely right because first impressions are always important, and you don't want to alienate or divide the masses who are going to be your potential customers of this game. So I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But moving forward, I did see some gameplay of Mafia 3.
Mm-hmm.
I played the first one. I didn't play the second one because I heard mediocre things about it. But I am excited for that. It looks like an interesting story. How they'll incorporate it will interest me because, again, Oh, and by the way, I want to say this. Ryan, you and I have both noticed that both games like Watch Dogs 2 and Mafia 3 have been getting slack because the protagonist is either biracial or isn't a white, jacked up male. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous. And I don't think that.
What do you mean by slack?
Yeah.
Less publication.
Criticism from gamers.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so and here me be the devil's advocate in that aspect. Most of the things that people don't like is the fact that you're changing something. A lot of people do not like change. And so when you're bringing into a game something that starts out with this character of a specific race, specific look, specific everything, people get frustrated when you change that. You can take that into consideration when they did that with Captain America, made what was it, Falcon or whatever, as the Captain America, made him black. What was the other? You find out the Iceman was.
Wait, I thought
Captain America?
I thought Falcon was black. I thought it was the
Captain Falcon is, but when they made Captain Falcon become Captain America.
I'm sorry.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I was also going to say the Fantastic Four when they made Johnny Blaze black.
Yep, they did that. Then they also made Iceman gay. I mean, what happened is you coming into this thing where you have people's original ideas, and then somebody comes in and says, all right, let's change it to make it more politically correct for whatever's going on right now, so that we keep those type of fans here, because somebody's going to complain. And right now, we don't want to lose people and get all the hate that we'd get if we don't change it to this specific thing, so that we keep those type of people.
So yeah, the only thing with that
let
is
me just actually, Ryan, if you don't mind, let me just touch on Red's comments. I agree with you in some aspects, Red. I think
I'm not saying that I agree with this. I'm just saying.
Oh no. I know what you're saying. No. I know what you're saying, and I want to say that I think, to be more correct, I think that people are resistant to change because it can make them uncomfortable.
Exactly.
But I would also argue with this: Mafia 3 is a completely different story. It might have a few small characters. It might have a few remaining characters from some of the original games. But I would also say this is a completely different story. It's a completely different setting. It takes place in New Orleans that has a Creole culture to it.
Correct.
And what's even more interesting is that because the character is biracial, the Mafia is not particularly fond of people who are not Italian, who are other ethnicities.
Exactly.
Racist.
Well, but you got to remember the first two were Italians, So
it's Mafia, so it would.
So when it comes around in the third, they're changing something, and you got to remember about what's going on in the world right now and how it's going on and why it's changing. People think it's changing not because, hey, this is a new take on the story, but because of what's happening in the world. And that's the only thing that I'm, like I said, playing devil's advocate for, that people might be frustrated by.
And that's the whole thing. And I think I touched on this with the last podcast where we addressed this a little bit, but
yeah,
as long as they need to go out and they need to justify it to these people. They need to go out and they need to be like, this is why we chose to have an African American protagonist as opposed to a white protagonist.
Right.
And that's where I'm most interested in some of these, to see where like Mafia takes it. Like where do they, how far do they go? Do they go far enough? Do they go too far? Into like delving into how much does race have an effect on the story and the character and everything like that.
Well, Ryan, I think they can justify it by playing the game and seeing what exactly the story is that they're incorporating and what place it has in this universe. But to be also correct, and something I also talked to you about, Ryan, when it comes to Red Dead Redemption, one of our favorite games, and the alleged sequel that's coming up, one thing I hope Rockstar does is that a little known fact is that most cowboys back in the Western era were actually not white. There were only about 30 to 35% who I think were white. The majority of them were either Mexican, Native American, or African American. The reason why people assume cowboys are white is because back in the 30s, when motion pictures were being made, they had all white actors playing cowboys. So that's actually one of the things I hope Rockstar does. But I mean, again, I know people are getting a little off topic, but it's just something I wanted to add.
Oh no, and this ties into games. You're not as much off topic as you think. It ties into games and what kind of games are coming out and people's feelings on them. And it's something that I guess people duck away from and don't want to talk about because they're afraid of how people might react. But you're right. Absolutely right about the history behind that and everything. And Rockstar doesn't seem like the type to hide away from that.
Yeah, shy away from something like that.
Yeah, they're not. And to be honest, if the next one for Red Redemption ends up being, Indian cowboy or a black cowboy, hey, more power to them. And as you're stating, history justifies what they're doing. And as Ryan stated, with the Mafia, if they just, come out and say, hey, this is why we're doing this, that might help with, your sales and how people take it and everything.
It sounds like they're
or it could, but then again,
they're doing it with Mafia 3 though, that they're leaning into it as much as they can to make this character make you feel like you're actually in this time period with this character. So
exactly.
That's what I'm looking forward to there, especially.
Exactly.
No, I agree with that. But Ryan, I also think that because I think the most important thing is why the story takes place in New Orleans for Mafia 3. And if there's a legit reason, then it makes absolute sense to have a biracial protagonist. Because like I said, New Orleans has a high Creole and African American population. So it would make sense to have that. I mean, if it took place in the swamplands, I mean, yeah, you can have some redneck white cracker as the protagonist, but who would want to play?
Hey, that's racist.
Yeah,
you're right. That is racist. I expose my prejudices against my own people. But personally, for me, Ryan, I could care less who the protagonist is, and I think that if people are not going to buy the game because of the ethnicity of the character, then I think it's going to be their loss if it's a great game, and if the game turns out to be terrible, fine, you were right about one game, but you're going to miss out on other games with multicultural protagonists. I mean, look at Assassin's Creed. That character was Syrian. I mean, for the first Assassin's Creed character was Syrian. That didn't interrupt sales, and no one seemed to notice that. But hey, that's just me.
Yeah, you're entirely correct. Most games nowadays allow you to choose what you look like and what gender you are.
Which I think is important because I mean, again, that's what we did in Fallout and that's what we can do in Mass Effect.
Well, that allows you to delve into the character. You get to actually pretend like you are the main character.
Right, and that's why you do it. You want to make the character look like yourself, or I do at least, as much as possible because I want to be Commander Shepard. By the way, I actually look a little bit like Commander Shepard, by the way.
That's where Mafia 3, I think, is going to depart from those games where you get to choose your gender and your race and all of that stuff and saying, no, we're crafting a story around this particular person as opposed to an RPG where you get to build your own character. And really the story doesn't revolve around those choices you make. It's more about, bigger choices like who you kill, who you don't kill, and things like that.
Exactly.
So that's right. Where like the tailored story and the pre-built character can actually go. And like I mean, even when you play through The Witcher, you get the prejudice against being a Witcher. Everybody looking at you sideways and things like that, thinking you're deceitful or a monster or something like that.
Right, but that's also a little bit of a different topic, Ryan. That just adds to more conflict in the story, and I think people are not going to be resistant towards that because they like conflict. It creates interest. It creates more of a more fun, complicated experience, and it gets you more into that game. So I think for something like that, that's more of a change. That's more of something people are much more willing to accept. Now, why is they can't do it for other protagonists? I mean, I'm Irish, and all the Mafia games are obviously Italian, and I never cared. But again, that's just me. I don't care who the protagonist is, whether it's a female or if it's a male, for that matter.
So, is there anything else you want to talk about E3 before we wrap it up, Si?
Honestly, Ryan, I can't think of too much else. I was impressed by the new Xbox One that's coming out. My friend actually was so impressed by the price and what they were releasing that he actually offered me to it was the Xbox what was that one that it's the new models that are being released, the thinner models.
The Slim,
I forget what it is. Yeah, the Xbox Slims. Forgive me for that. Believe it or not, my friend was so impressed by the prices, which I was as well, that he's actually offered me to sell his Halo Edition Xbox One. Unfortunately, it's not looking like I'm going to be able to purchase it because, lo and behold, people, in October, I need to save money for a plane ticket so I can go to my cousin's wedding in Oregon. So I might want to start a Kickstarter on this podcast, Ryan. I need the people to help me fund to get that.
All right, well, it's too bad Xbox. That's not going to happen. No.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. I'm not a charity case. I do not want your money. I'm just kidding.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
On the other hand, if you want to send money to Ryan Shepard. All right. Well, yeah, it was an E3 of ups and downs, that's for sure. There were some.
It was an expectedly inconsistent E3, Ryan. I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next up, we're going to be talking a little bit about Star Ocean 5. Red's going to talk a little bit about that. We'll be back.
And if you'll excuse me, I'm probably going to take a nap while Red does that.
All right, me too. I'll just hit record and we'll just take a nap.
Yeah, I'm going to go take a dump on the toilet while Red does that.
We'll be right back.